Yeah, it's working. So let's start off this podcast by saying that I am now officially part of the iPhone gang.
Finally.
Yeah, I've been using Samsung or
For too long?
well, Android, yeah, for like 7 years. Like my only Apple product was my iPod that I got in grade 6, yeah, and then it cracked. But like I still kept using it. I wish I still had that thing because there were so many like things on it, like conversations and apps. Like back then we used it, I mean there wasn't real texting on it, so we
Yeah.
used like this Wi-Fi texting.
Yeah, if you had an actual iPhone back then you could have had a cloud to store it on, and then you wouldn't have lost all of that. But you switched over to Samsung, so I guess that's what you get.
Yeah. I mean, I still have my Samsung here. It's the S9. I mean, I was using the S10, but I have let that go. I'm moving on to the next stage of my life. Oh, we forgot to do the intro. You want to do it? Should I do it?
I thought we were just gonna do it after.
2 Girls, 1 Mic, episode 3.
That's how you're gonna introduce it? I was gonna like kind of let you talk and then be like, but hey guys, welcome back to 2 Girls, 1 Mic, episode 3.
It's all right. It's natural. Let's just go with it.
Okay.
I feel like we're so unprepared for this episode too because we've been like, Hiba has exams.
No, I don't. Don't pin this on me. I've been chilling.
She has school, other responsibilities that are more important than me and this podcast.
I'm sorry.
I'm depression.
Okay. You're canceled.
Which brings us to today's topic, cancel culture and why it should be canceled.
So before we even get started on what cancel culture is or where we've seen it the most, I think it's important to say that, of course, there are some things that bring upon good things. Some things can be good, but then also those things can be bad. So we're not saying that cancel culture is entirely bad, but cancel culture has grown in a sense where now it's something that we see amongst kids who don't know how to control emotions.
Yeah, I feel like now it's not like it's not adults that have a good sense of what judgment is or like how judging should be. It's people that actually they don't actually base it off of facts. It's
They
based
base it
off
off
of
how
feelings.
they feel and
Yes.
whether they like someone and whether what they did is likable or not.
Yeah, and it's opinion based. It's more feeling based. It's not like a logical process, right? And that's why we have stuff like court where there's actually evidence brought to light on stuff and a logical procedure is followed. And you don't get that. You don't get the same grace in social media because it's just a bunch of people talking about whatever. There's no censor. There's no like policing, I guess, right? Social policing is a topic Hiba brought up before and she wanted to talk about it. So
we're going to talk about it later in this video. But before we even get into the video, I really wanted to like set out the actual definition of cancel culture. So cancel culture describes a form of boycott in which someone, usually a celebrity, who has shared a questionable or unpopular opinion or has had behavior in their past that is perceived to be either offensive or problematic, called out on social media as canceled. So people tend to boycott either the products that they support or the productions that they're in, or just you know what, like they just cancel the entire person. They don't continue to support them or provide them with the fame. And then I wanted to see where cancel culture actually started because it's nice to see the root of things. So cancel culture was a lot stronger after Gillis was fired from SNL for racist jokes he made as recently as 2018. Comedian Jim Jeffries said this is just cancel culture. Comedian Aziz Ansari, who was briefly cancelled after a controversial 2018 article about his behavior on a date, has just released a comedy special on Netflix. So as you can see, one person was canceled and fired, whereas the other person just recently got a Netflix special. So you can see it over time. Cancel culture has just become one of those things where it's like someone gets canceled and then people just get back to supporting them at the same time.
Yeah, it doesn't really make an impact, right? Like all it does is temporarily kind of damage the person's reputation. But because there's no basis to it, like there's no hardcore evidence that something wrong has been done, it doesn't carry it into their professional career. It doesn't, unless something is like, unless it's such a strong influence that somebody is like, oh, we're not going to work with this person anymore. But really, companies will not like end $1 million deals with celebrities over the opinions of people who have no hardcore evidence that anything has happened.
But it just depends on, at the end of the day, your popularity. So if they see that your popularity has declined, for example, Jake Paul, right? He was kicked off of his Disney show.
Right. Oh, yes.
Just because he wasn't that likable anymore because he got canceled. So there are some people who, it just depends on how the situation goes, whether it's still in your favor or not, and how many people are still on your side or not on your side.
Yeah. Like what is a big, I guess a big event like this that happened was with James Charles and Tati.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what your views on that situation were, but I remember us messaging each other and talking about it. And I was so glad that we had the same view on it, because I know everybody, when the first video came out, it was just Tati talking about what had happened, how James had, you know, she brought a lot of personal stuff into it about how he's acted outside, like in their friendship, stuff that didn't have anything to do with business. And it was, I guess it was more of like a personal vendetta that she kind of pushed with her hair care brand. And so for me, like I was looking at everyone's tweets and they were mostly on Tati's side. And I was like, am I weird for not being on Tati's side? I feel like this is a grown adult attacking a 19-year-old kid.
Yeah. It was the same with me. I just saw everything. I didn't really watch the video with Tati just because I don't believe that you should be promoting and like indulging in such behavior. You shouldn't like give people the validation by watching that video, because then it just spikes up the drama, which it did. Just because people were watching it so much and her business got so much attention, these videos went back and forth until one person got canceled, and then it just went back and forth, like it continued, and then it kind of just went nowhere. And
other people got involved, like people that
Shane Dawson, Jeffree Star.
So many people got involved, started making their own videos, started.
And it was the guy from like the New York City, the waiter guy. Like it was just, she shouldn't have. See, the thing is, if you have a problem from a certain aspect of a person, that is the only aspect you're allowed to discuss. It is not your job to bring in everything else and be like, this is, you are no one to describe a person and be like, this is why they are not a good person.
Jeffree Star like brought in a whole bunch of other accusations, but it felt like he wasn't even really upset about what had happened. He just had his own issues with James Charles, and they were mainly based on just him not liking him.
And I remember how there was such a hype around Jeffree Star being like, oh, I'm gonna bring screenshots to the table,
and then he brought nothing. He did nothing.
Like, oh yeah, I remember I watched that video, like I was just skipping and I'm like, he's not gonna do anything because there's nothing to say.
Exactly.
And you can't really fake a conversation. And I remember people were like, James Charles faked the conversation.
Yeah.
And then I kind of just it got at that point where it was just like, I'm not a part of the situation, so I'm just not gonna follow up with it anymore. Yeah,
that was me too. At a certain point, it got so ridiculous that I was like, why are people first of all, so I know that human nature, especially now, because we're so humans are just naturally into escapism. Like we really like things that kind of distract us from our own life, and that's what social media is based around, right? It's just kind of like an escape from reality. And so when people see like somebody else's life kind of going to like hell, they're just immediately attracted to that, and it's like, this is so much more interesting than what I'm doing at home, let me follow it, right? And so for me, it was an act of bullying. What Tati and Jeffree did was bullying. There were two adults attacking some, like I'm 20, you're 19, you're gonna be turning 20 this year. And it's like, imagine like a 30-year-old, like literally posting everything about our like dirt from our past onto social media, where nobody knows us. Nobody knows us personally to be able to defend us. And just like bringing up stuff that we have done,
bringing stuff out of context.
Yeah,
shaping
exactly.
things, shaping situations. Because I remember there was a screenshot that Tati posted where she kind of like molded the entire situation, and she brought up her birthday dinner, and she was just like, this is what happened, and this is what he did, and this is what went down. And I was just like, okay, but you're not giving the entire context, and that's what James Charles gave us.
And the waiter too, when he posted his side of the thing, it was all consensual. Like he was, and he proved his own point. He proved James' point. He was like, oh, he didn't do anything because I didn't, like, I was uncomfortable, and then James left, and it was like, so why did you not come out sooner and say that, you know, all of it was consensual? You basically just, and I feel like people, they can be bystanders, but if you're a bystander and you're not speaking up for what's right, you are a part of the side that is wrong.
Yeah. No, it's like that with, see, the thing is, when we're like that in person, because I've noticed this, if we see a couple fighting or someone arguing, we'll stand in the corner and we'll look and we'll stare and we'll kind of just
debate whether we should step in.
Exactly. But we never do. Or we take too long to step in and things get out of hand.
You're like, oh, it's probably not that serious.
It's their personal matter. I'm not going to step into it. Which is understandable to a certain point, but if you see that it's disruptive behavior and it's affecting someone negatively and someone is uncomfortable in the situation, it is your job to at least step in and be like, are you comfortable? Are you okay? Do you need me to walk you away from this? Can I hold your hand through this? Like, what do you need me to do? As a bystander, you have responsibilities, and it is one of the primary things that you were taught in high school, that it is your job to speak up.
God, and that's why I didn't understand that. I'm like, we are so against bullying, but why are we only against it when we feel like it's happening to the wrong person?
It's because, okay, this is what I've noticed. I personally have no problem with James Charles. Like, I know a lot of people don't like him. He seems okay. He's a kid. He's passionate about something,
and he's doing
good
really well for himself.
Exactly, like, good for him. But people tend to hate on him a lot. And I've gone through his comments, and honestly speaking, if I got comments like that, I couldn't be on social media. I couldn't stand it at all. And when people tend to see a situation flip over for someone like that, they don't necessarily step in and care. They don't necessarily say anything because they like to see that person canceled. And even after that situation occurred, I think people try to cancel him 2 other times. When there was a video of him that circulated from Kylie Jenner's birthday, I think, where he says the N-word. Personally, I didn't see it. I saw him mouth it, but I didn't see him say it. And he kind of didn't even mouth the word. He just went, which is very different than actually saying
the word. I think and James Charles, like, his personality is very out there. Like, he seems like he's very confident in himself, and so
he's not afraid of what he says.
And I've always noticed that with people that, like, I had this issue too, where if you are doing well for yourself, then people do want to see you kicked down, right? And that's the thing, like, him being a 19-year-old kid, he's doing really well on YouTube. He's getting $1 million. He had his Sephora deal around that time. Morphe, sorry. And then he was doing really well for himself. And the fact that, like, he was so shook at first that this was happening. He posted, like, a video of himself, and he was, like, crying, and he wasn't really, like, talking properly. And people were like, this is so fake, and blah, blah, blah. And then he came back with another video where he was actually composed, and he was able to, like, defend himself.
Exactly. But I feel like in that moment, it requires you to immediately react. You don't have time. Because people start speculating and people start attacking, because people didn't wait more than a second to start unsubscribing. So it was his job to kind of get out there and fix the damage that was done. So it didn't give him time to process it and come up with a way to, like, gracefully handle it. Some people need a little bit of time before they can actually come back from it, especially if you're 19.
And you're receiving death threats. Oh my God. Like, I'm 20 years old, and if somebody says anything to me that is, like, mean, I'll think about it for days. And I remember you saying that too.
I said it right now. I was like, it's hard for you to just be able to get over it. And it won't even be anything serious. Like, it'll be something that someone said or speculated, and it'll just immediately affect us. So imagine you're sitting across the screen, and comment after comment after comment after comment, people are just being like, you're a piece of shit, you're this, you're that, you're racist, you're that, you deserve to kill yourself, you should kill yourself, you're a piece of shit, she brought you up, she was like a mother that you never had in LA, blah blah blah. And the thing, you can have a mentor, But your mentor can only take you so far. The other opportunities that you will avail, the other paths that you make for yourself, are done from your own work.
Yeah, and it is your hard work that lets you even listen to that mentor, right?
And helps you excel.
The thing is that people can say whatever they want to you, but if you're not in it to be in it, you're not going to do anything.
Exactly.
Like, I know a lot of people have mentors, doesn't mean all of them make it, right? And the other thing that I wanted to bring up is how brutal like social media can be. Like, because we're so detached, where this is a screen that, you know, it's not letting me see what the other person is feeling. When we're face to face, I can see everything that you're feeling. And when I'm like talking to you on text or something, there's a sense of detachment there, right?
Of course, yeah.
And so that actually makes you so desensitized to other people's emotions that you lack the empathy to care about what you're saying. And so typing a sentence to you is nothing. It's just like you either are having fun with it or it's like a mob mentality. Somebody's down, why not kick them while you're at it?
Because nowadays kids just say anything. And I know that before we used to do it too, but there used to be a sense of like, there was some sense of, I want to say some sense of sensibility, but that just sounds really
like sensitivity to the issues that we were.
No, they were sensible is what I want to say. But saying sense of sensibility would have just been a little too much. But there you go. It's a mouthful, but they had some sort of idea of how to treat another person, or they thought about what they were saying before. But nowadays kids don't really care, where they'll say mean things to people without realizing how it's going to impact the other person and how it's going to impact them. Because when you say something to someone mean, you're bound to get a reaction. And sometimes when it's someone young that you're saying it to, they'll give you a reaction much worse. And I find that even adults nowadays, especially influencers, they tend to say things that aren't acceptable. Like, I know Austin McBroom said this thing about how his content shouldn't be free or something. And I was like, okay, so that's what you're gonna do to your fans, where they supported you, gotten you to where you are, given you all these opportunities, and now you're gonna say they don't deserve to see the content if they don't pay for it, which is wrong. But with the kids, you shouldn't be giving these kids a platform or even like the technology to be saying these things. And as a parent, it is your responsibility to know what your kids are doing with the internet, or what they're doing with their phones, or what they're doing with their tablets, or with their laptops, or on the TV. Because at the end of the day, if they're old enough to make an account and to be saying these things, they should be old enough to deal with the consequences of their actions.
So I feel like kids nowadays are, as much as they're raised by their parents, they're equally or maybe even more raised by the media, because they spend a lot of time on that. And so they're technically raised by other people. Like, we get influenced by the slightest things, right? If somebody says something to us, or there's an opinion that we see, that's kind of like imprinted into our mind. And so we're influenced by that, and we form our personality. Like, we are a character of our environment. And so whatever we're taking in is kind of subconsciously what we're going to be implementing into our life. And so I feel like knowing this, and I feel like there has been research probably done on this, but knowing this, morally, I feel like even people that are influencers kind of have that sense of like responsibility, where they're like, okay, what am I saying now that's going to impact like the generation, you know? If I have this platform to speak about things, what am I talking about? And I know that influencers, like they say like, oh, I should be able to do what I want, I'm not raising your kids, you have the responsibility at home. But like, come on, like, this is a different world that we're living in, and we have to accept that reality.
So the thing that I loved about Liza Koshy the most was she focused a lot on who her demographic was. So she would always speak about how she was raising the younger generation, and how kids who were 6 to 12 loved watching her videos, and preteens loved watching her videos. And she always catered to her audience to the sense where she never swore in her videos, and the content she put out was wholesome. Of course, now she's grown out of that kind of, and she's obviously has like realistic, more practical opportunities where she does have to step out of that box. But always with her YouTube content, she remained loyal to her audience, and she didn't complain about the audience that she catered to, which I find like it's fair. You grow up, you want to move on, but there's a correct way to handle that.
And I feel like she's been very graceful in that. Like her, and you don't see her much on YouTube. I don't know. I don't really watch her, but she doesn't come on YouTube as much. But the opportunity she has now, obviously, it's for adults, right? Like adults watch stuff outside of YouTube, and kids watch stuff within YouTube. Like when I was about 12, 13, 14, I was on YouTube. I watched like Nigga Hicka, and I watched Smosh. Stop it. Smosh. Who else? I watched Superwoman, and I feel like
Marbles.
I feel like they were all very, very appropriate with what they were putting out. It was like skits that kids would like understand and kind of find funny, you know. It was like soft humor. And
now it's kind of like I find that the content is strayed and has kind of become this thing where it's just a race of how many things do you have? Like it's more materialistic,
it is very
more
materialistic.
Fictional than it is realistic.
Which is why I really like David Dobrik. I feel like his content is still very like, you know, like it's
generous.
Funny. And it's genuine. He's doing what he loves. He doesn't do it for the views. He doesn't do it for the whatever, you know. And I feel like that is somebody like kids can kind of watch and be like, oh, that's fun. You know?
Like I understand that he does like he has content, like he does talk about sex very openly and content that he has and the people that he has are very controversial and the stuff that he says it's appropriate. The stuff that he says and the way he handles things is very graceful. Of course, like it depends on what you are comfortable with your kid watching. Because to be honest, his siblings aren't allowed to watch his videos. So their parents think that the stuff that he puts out isn't suitable for their minds. So at the end of the day, it is your parent. If his siblings aren't, like his parents aren't okay with his siblings watching it, then maybe other parents need to be like, okay, can my kid watch this? And there are some videos that kids can watch where it's more kid friendly, but then obviously it just comes up to the discretion of how you raise your child and what they know their limitations are. Like
YouTube has, like whenever we're posting a video, YouTube asks us like, is this kid friendly? And you have to abide by it. Like I know it said that you have to let us know if this is kid friendly.
I always say no.
I don't know if it is. Because a lot of the stuff that we talk about probably kids won't understand, first of all. But also like I wanted to say that there's a lot I like kids can lie about their age, obviously, but that's where your role as a parent like steps in. You know, you want to make sure all of the accounts have the appropriate age on it, so that the content that is recommended to them is age appropriate. And like I was using the S10, and it actually had like an option to completely transform the phone into a kid friendly phone. So like it would basically change all the apps, it would change the wallpaper. Like you just hit one button, literally one button, and it was like kid friendly. And so like all the apps would change into like all these kid friendly stuff. And so like we live in a technological era where we have that freedom to be able to like, you know, have more control over what our kids are watching. Like when I was younger, I was like 11 and I was watching Family Channel. Sometimes Family Channel, especially shows like Life with Derek, it was kind of like a little controversial, and so my parents would kind of have to like walk into the room, make sure I was watching age appropriate stuff. But now it's like you have the parental controls on the TV, you have it on phones, like you have that, like I guess you have that ability.
See, the only thing I find that is a problem with all that is if you're putting limitations on your kid is different than teaching them their limitations.
Right.
It's better if you teach them what their values are and how they're supposed to handle different situations in life. It's better that you tell them, hey, this is what you can or can't do. I'm not saying you can never do this. I'm saying that there's an age for you to do this, which is what my parents did with me. My mom said, I'm not saying, like with dating, she was always like, I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm saying there's an age for it. Just wait for that age. Of course, I didn't wait for the age, but that's
I feel like that's the thing. We all learn. I mean, sometimes we're bound to not listen to our parents sometimes, but that's where like our own experience that molds us comes in, right? I feel like as a parent, there's only a certain amount of things that you can control.
But then with even like that, there are some kids, like if I was messing up in one place, I would try my best to listen to everything else that they said. So I used to not watch things that they didn't want me to watch. I didn't listen to music that they weren't comfortable with. I'm very big on halal and haram still, because I know that makes them very uncomfortable. So there are things that you can always, like, it's always I heard this thing about it's a pick and choose of what you want to do for your parents, and you have like 3 cards in life. And you want to save those 3 cards for really big situations. Yeah. I've used one when I switched universities. Yeah. So only got 2 left. It's definitely, I mean, it's hard as a parent. I'm not saying that, you know, you have to be on top of everything your kid is doing, because no, it is very hard as a parent. I haven't been an easy child to parent ever. I'm pretty sure I've used all of my cards and more. And so it's like, okay. Yeah, I also wholeheartedly believe that Miley took all of the crap of the industry, and when she was all beaten up and bruised, it kind of gave everyone else the go-ahead that, you know, okay, you can make it out alive from this. Yeah. Like Ariana Grande, like she was pretty provocative after that, like 7 rings and break up with your girlfriend on board. Like that was all like really provocative videos, but do you realize how she kind of like skyrocketed because of that? But when Miley did it, it was like, what are you doing? I think it was because, you know how there is like something that people say where it's before its time? Yeah. But someone has to do it before it's time to make it okay in its time. Yes. So she did it first. She did it so out there. It was so out there that she kind of like put an umbrella effect over it, and she was just like, this is the most that you can do. But whatever you do under here, you'll be okay as long as you stay under me. Yeah. And that's very brave. I have to admit it is brave, and it's very hard to deal with that, because I remember I read the comments under Wrecking Ball and I was like, oh, okay. I guess not a lot of people like it. I know. Oh, there was this one interview, we might put a clip of that interview in this, but there was this one interview where like the girl was straight up like just, and Miley's face in that interview was like so upset, because the girl was like, why do you dress like this? And like, why do you do this? And Miley's like face, like she was trying to defend herself, but like, interviewers are pieces of shit. I'll just come out and say it. They don't know when to shut up. I have seen so many clips. And it was a really old lady. Yeah, I remember I've seen clips where it's like 10 times celebrities dealt with interviewers in the worst way possible. Yeah. And then you can see celebrities dealing with them the right way just because the interviews are making them uncomfortable. Yeah. And I understand that both people are doing it because it's their job. Yeah. But at the end of the day, you have to be the judge of what is okay and what isn't okay. And you need to remember, how old is the person that you're sitting across from? Are they younger than you? Do you have to treat them a certain way? Yeah. You have to treat everyone with a certain amount of respect at the end of the day. That's the thing. I feel like morality is just lost on people when money, and so like there's grown people that are struggling with money, like fast money that comes in so fast that you feel the pressure of it. I feel like there's grown people that struggle with that, and to have like a 13-year-old struggle with that, where now she has a bunch of fame and now she's most likely responsible to support her family, and so like all of that, like, you know, you have to, as an adult in that situation, your sense of morality has to be good. Like the thing you said where you don't sign off your kid to like a contract, right? Like that's your sense of morality. Is my kid's mental health more important than the paycheck that's going to pay for my big house that I probably don't even need? And what's upsetting is that if you look in this day and age, and if you look at who, like I was looking at 15 top YouTube pages, and most of them are kids. Yeah. So I know that kids are more likable just because they're cute and they're tiny and they're cute. Yeah. But that doesn't mean that you should take your kid and be like, okay, go make money for me. Yeah, like what's that kid's the guy's name from Home Alone? I forget his name. Something. I forget his name, but oh my god, like he looked so like I think he suffered from drug abuse as well, and he was a kid when he was on Home Alone, and it was really cute. His name is Macaulay Culkin. Macaulay. Yeah. And like I know there's like pictures of him where he suffered from drug abuse, and you can see the visual effects of it, and it is here. So I'll also put it in the video. Yeah, we'll throw it up. But wow, like it's like, yeah, it's definitely a sense of morality, right? Like that's where that
that more moral sense comes in, where it's like I'm dealing with a kid and I'm dealing with the public, the general public. How harsh are they going to be on this kid once I'm done with them? That's what interviewers have to kind of take into account. But I feel like a lot of people forget that because they're like, this is the industry, this is our job, we're making money off of it. The kid understands that, when they most likely don't.
Yeah. What I also find odd is that you'll always see kids playing kids and adults playing adults, but like teens are played by adults as well. Which, like, at the end of the day, you want to give each age group an opportunity, an even opportunity to excel. And I feel like when kids grow up that are already famous, it's harder for them to kind of be the teens playing those roles, and they kind of like just trail off in between, and then they come back when in their adulthood to try to make a comeback.
Yeah.
And it doesn't always work out because at that point they've lost their likability touch.
Another thing that I really dislike about adults playing teens is because it gives you a really false sense of what a teen should look like. I don't know if you watch Riverdale. I don't watch it because I think the show is absolute garbage, but
I watch it because it's garbage.
I go on YouTube and I literally like
just watch clips
I skip over the episode. Worst moments in Riverdale, and I just laugh so hard. But there's adults playing those roles, and they're supposed to be high school kids.
Yeah.
First of all, the actual storyline is nothing that is done in that show a teenager in high school would do.
Exactly.
And second of all, the way that they look, especially that AJ guy, I think he's like one of them, KJ Appa. He looks...
Archie.
Yeah, Archie. He does not look like a teenager in high school.
Neither does Cole Sprouse.
No.
Neither does Lily Reinhardt, neither does Camilla Mendes.
Yeah.
See, the thing is, I believe, yeah, sure, have beautiful people play these roles, because obviously you want, if you have a beautiful cast, your show does good, right? That's why Friends did so good, because the entire cast was good looking.
Really pretty, yeah.
It's not...
Grey's Anatomy, the whole cast is really good looking.
Exactly. Like, shows tend to just do good based on how their cast looks, and I understand that to a certain point. But if you're putting these on Disney, or if you're putting these on if these are shows that are supposed to be something that teenagers are supposed to be able to relate to, you need to realize the actual problems that teenagers have and kind of cater to that. Even, like, I feel like 13 Reasons Why tried to do it a little bit. They handled it very badly, where they kind of just overdid it. Yeah. There's a certain... It
doesn't seem natural when you're trying to push it, right?
Exactly. Like, you don't want to overdo it to the point where it's like the one moment that just didn't make sense to me at all was when Hannah Baker's ass got called fat. Yeah. And she killed herself over it. And I was like, okay.
I don't know if you can put this on the podcast.
But yeah, I found that I was just like, okay.
A lot of scenes
you could have made, like, it would have been better if you would have had like an Instagram comment about, like, they could have put up an Instagram comment that was sent from an anonymous account.
It was just like the string of things that happened just didn't fall in the right order.
I feel like they were just trying too hard with that show.
So that's the thing. You try to make the show too relatable and it comes off as cringy. Like Riverdale kind of does that, where it comes off as, they try to be so relatable. They try to like put phrases that you normally use.
That you don't know the triumphs of football or something. High school football.
And it's like, okay, that's just cringy. Or you're not being relatable at all. And in that case, your audience is just kind of watching the show and they're not getting anything out of it. I feel like as a director, as a producer, as somebody who is funding the show, okay, not everybody can be moral. In a perfect world, everybody would be moral and they would be like, okay, I am making a show and it is going to impact the masses. And so it is my responsibility. Because, you know, when we send our kids off to school, we're like, the teachers are raising our kids, kind of, right? And so I feel like it should be the same thing when you're like, my kids are going to watch the show and it's going to affect them somehow.
I feel like, okay, there's no way that you can ever be safe.
Yeah.
When you, let's say I put a tweet out, okay? And it's something that I have taken a year to think about to make sure that it doesn't offend anyone.
Yes.
I can bet you $10, because I don't want to lose a lot of money. I'll bet you $10 that that tweet will still offend one person.
Yes.
Because everyone has their own values at the end of the day, and you don't know what someone, like, I'm not saying that it's right or wrong for them to be offended by it. Like, someone can be right-winged or left-wing. but regardless of that, they have their own beliefs.
Yes.
And me saying something could offend either side or
Yeah. Oh, okay. Let me read that quote that I posted on our page.
Which is at the Getaway Space on Instagram
At
and
the Getaway
Twitter.
Space on Instagram and Twitter.
Plug.
I mean, we're gonna be doing that with our merch when it drops, hopefully. Merch will probably come. Anyways, yeah, so I posted, we can't apply the same thought process to every scenario. Every human being is designed to be unique. Our minds differ in how they perceive reality. Our emotions waver in their intensity. Our truths may take a different form than someone else's. And then all of these factors combine to give us a distinct perception of this world, our relationships, society, politics, etc. So can we get upset with somebody because they have different opinions than us?
Yes, no.
Yeah, it's definitely a yes-no thing. But on social media, where it's like everybody attacks somebody for the slightest thing, you know, like you have a different opinion on the color of your shoe that you like.
And people will attack you for it.
Yeah,
I'm against that. I don't see, the thing is, everything's just about the clout now. You just want the most Twitter likes, you just want the most Instagram likes, you just want people to think you're relatable, and you just want people to be able to...
You want to get a reaction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that makes sense, because everyone wants to be famous kind of now. It doesn't make sense because at the end of the day, you start to lose sense of who you are.
Yeah.
And you don't want to ever lose your touch.
Right. And I think that even like the right-wing, left-wing thing, right? I feel like there is an agenda that is kind of like pit us against one another, and it's like, you can't have different political views, or like the right is more racist than the left is, and the left is too like, you know,
lenient.
Yeah, too lenient. It's because everybody fails to hear one another out. That's the whole problem. There's no conversation where it's like,
I'm right, you're wrong.
Yeah, I'm right, you're wrong. It's just like,
no, I'm right, you're wrong.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm right, you're wrong.
I think I shouldn't be doing a podcast with you because
I'm right, you're wrong.
Obviously my opinion matters more.
I'm right, you're wrong.
there's no like debate anymore. It's just like attack. It's attack. People are constantly on a defensive mode because they feel like they have to protect their opinions, because they feel like their opinions are part of their identity. But what people don't realize is that our opinions are constantly changing. That doesn't mean our identity at its core is changing. You know, people fear that loss of identity, that if my opinions are influenced, then I lose that part of myself. But you don't lose that part of yourself. That part of yourself just evolves.
Exactly. Yeah.
It becomes a different person. It becomes a different idea.
Yeah. So okay. How do I say this in a nice way? How do I say this in a way which won't get me canceled?
I feel like a lot of what we said might get us canceled.
We haven't even started. We don't have the clout to get canceled. We'll get clout because we get canceled.
Yes, that's true.
That's what happens a lot of the times, though, because nobody knows someone, and then someone gets canceled, and everyone just jumps on the bandwagon.
Yeah,
and they're just like,
or they take like an out of context clip and post it on Twitter. I feel like Twitter is where the most action happens.
Exactly. But what I was gonna say was, I don't know. You go ahead.
Okay.
I don't know what I was gonna say.
Yeah, there's on that point, when we were talking about cancel culture, I think we forgot to mention this, but how do you feel about people bringing up other people's like old tweets from like when they were 13?
I refuse to acknowledge anything I've done when I was 13. That me was not me.
Yeah.
I don't know her. Anything before today, I don't know her.
I feel like there's so many evolutions.
There's so many versions of you, right?
Yeah, and people aren't around to see that.
Yeah.
They see the clear-cut version of you that is just on Twitter or on Facebook. They just see that version of you that is in words. And so they take that version and they run with it. They're like, oh, when 10 years ago you said this, so you must be the same person today.
It's kind of like this. You need to be able to understand that you can never put a person in a box. You can't ever put anything in a box. There are so many different aspects, so many different perspectives, so many different stories, so many different sides to each situation. And you have to obviously be a certain age to be able to understand that. So even when looking at a tweet, you need to realize that this person, you have to kind of be able to understand their scenario. You have to ask yourself basic questions where it's like, how old is this person?
Yeah.
Are they smart enough to be making this decision where they know they shouldn't be posting this? Do they lack the knowledge? Where do they live? Because that also matters a lot, because where you're brought up has a certain impact on what you say and what you don't say.
Yes.
Being raised in Canada has obviously taught me that there are people from different cultures, different religions, and that we're supposed to accept everyone. Of course, it's not perfect, and we still do, to a certain extent, stereotype people, but you tend to control it a little better because you know what is kind of right and wrong, right? Yeah, I forgot. Sorry,
she has she's a fish. I always say that she has like the attention span of a goldfish.
Yeah, I'll stare at something for a little bit and then forget what it is.
It's okay, because I'm here to pick her up, with my ideas. And so at this point this is getting a little long. We're gonna have to wrap this up, but I think the perfect example of the fact that people can grow, the fact that people are dynamic, the fact that we can evolve, and the fact that our past does not have to come into our future, and the fact that even if we do find something about somebody that is wrong or that we may think is wrong, that we should kind of like look at all aspects of the situation. The perfect example of this is Kobe Bryant, and he's passed away, so may he rest in peace. But he did things, I don't know if everybody knows this, but he's done things in the past that were very negative towards his career, and I'm not gonna mention anything, but yeah, this is something that you can look at. But he is somebody who did grow from his mistakes. He learned from them. He was able to evolve, and people were able to accept that from him. A lot of other artists weren't as kind of, they didn't have that leniency where like XXX, he died, but people were brought up like all of his past mistakes and all of that. And so
you need to understand that there's two sides to that scenario, and there's a victim that obviously will be affected by it as well. So you have to be the judge of whether it is your place to be bringing up this story, whether it is right for you to be doing it at that moment. Because when someone dies, it changes the dynamic of who they were. It changes how they are. Yeah. And it is not your place to shit on someone who's already in their grave.
Right. But also it's about social justice. The term is social justice, right? Are we responsible for bringing social justice to people that we don't know anything about?
Which is why I really, 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 really want to talk about social policing. And I really want to mention how important it is for us.
Okay, you know what we're going to do? We have to get going, but we're going to do a part 2 probably for this term is social justice, right? Like, is it our responsibility as a general population to bring justice to people that we don't know anything about?
That's what I kind of wanted to, like, I brought it up in our last video where I was like, we need social policing. Obviously, so much has changed. Like, technology has grown so much, and there's been advancement in, let's say, the better. But obviously, laws are still the same, and a lot of laws have changed to kind of allow a lot of things to be gotten away with, to be given a free rein, let's just say. And a lot of people get away with a lot of things just because they do it on social media. So one of the most obvious examples I can use for that is if you bully someone in person, if a teacher sees you, it has more adverse effects than it does when you do it online. Because a lot of people don't consider it as serious if it's done online. I remember it happened with me in high school where I kind of got into a really big fallout fight with my friend, and I remember I slammed the locker, and I kind of just had my arm, like I punched it. I'm like an aggressive person when I'm pissed, and especially if I'm hurt. And I remember I went home and I typed an entire paragraph, and everything she did was over text and online. So she didn't have to deal with anything. The next day I got called down and I almost got suspended because of what I did, and they didn't care about the things that she said and the way that she bullied me, and the way she handled the situation was let off just because she did it online. Just because she exchanged those messages on Snapchat, it was okay. It wasn't okay for me to do it because I did it in person, which is unfair. So in that sense, we do need social justice and social policing rules. We need to update laws, and we need to be able to protect not only our data, but be able to protect our consumers and people on each and every platform. Because at the end of the day, it's important for us to be able to take technology into the future in the right way. Because if we take it off in the wrong way, then at one point we'll lose complete sense and complete control over what is right and what is wrong.
I feel like generationally or technologically, we're a very advanced generation, but a lot of our laws, especially about social media, are still based on the fact that sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can't hurt. And so physical stuff is taken very seriously. Verbal stuff, on the other hand, is just kind of like, get over it. It shouldn't hurt you. It's a word, or like walk away from your screen, whatever.
Even death threats aren't taken seriously.
Yeah.
Like if someone gets a death threat, they don't really.
Yeah, but have you? I don't know if you've seen Black Mirror, but there's an episode about how what this guy basically does is he starts this trend where you kind of like cancel somebody, right? And then all the people that send death, they basically, it's like a thing where you can send a death threat to the person, and then based on how many death threats that person gets, they're the victim of that guy. So if I cancel, say I set it up about you, and you get like 1,000 death threats, so I go and kill you. That's basically it, right? But actually what the guy is doing is figuring out who is sending the death threats, because those are the actual bad people, because they're passing judgment on somebody they don't actually know anything about based on a thing taken out of context. And so obviously that's extreme. But that's the thing, right? Where if you're sending a death threat, like that actually makes you a bad person. I don't know if people realize that, but that shows the evil in your heart. Because
if you wish death upon someone, you're not
so
a
willing,
good person.
and you're so willing to do it to a complete stranger.
Yeah.
What does that say about you? Is that just as bad as, like, okay, obviously not just as bad as you actually going and doing the crime, but just the fact that you have those thoughts in your head and you're so willing to put them out publicly, what does that say about you?
And I kind of want to talk about how people like to be notoriously famous.
Yes.
And how things that are done online aren't really a big deal. So I know there's The Cat Killer or something like that on...
Oh, yeah.
The documentary that's on Netflix now about Luca Magnotta, and how basically he got away with so much. And there were people who... There was a whole committee on Facebook that went behind and try to like track down who this person was, and they found so much information on him, and when they took it to the police didn't care.
Oh my god.
And the police kind of was just like, okay, but this guy doesn't live here. And I remember he moved to Germany or something, and then the German police was kind of just like, not our jurisdiction, because he's American. And it was kind of like just a back and forth until at one point he started killing people. And that's the sign of a serial killer. Serial killers first start off with animals. They like suffering, they like seeing pain, and then they eventually move on to people. And the funny thing, it's not funny, the sad thing is he said that eventually I'm going to move on to people, and there's nothing you will be able to do. And that's concerning, because that is also a part of the internet that we are so afraid to talk about. And it's not that uncommon. It's very normal. If you search up the dark side of the internet, there are so many deep webs. There are so many dark clips that you will find that are happening.
Dude, there's literally basis. You can hire a hitman.
Yeah.
And the worst part is that we as people in society, especially people who have the power to be stopping this stuff, right? They're so willing to overlook this, even though we are so advanced at this point that we can track down these people that are like people that have done like suicide bombings and stuff like that. I know that most of them have made tweets about them beforehand, or posted something on school shooters. They posted something on Facebook saying they're going to go and do something. We have the technology to be able to catch these things before they happen, and we don't. We brush it off because it's just social media.
Also, but at the same time, there's also like kids who say stuff that they're not really gonna do. So I understand why it's hard to be able to sound the alarm every single time a kid says something. Yeah. But there has to obviously be a certain set of precautions that you need to be able to take, so that kids are able to be like, hey, maybe I shouldn't be saying this.
Right. And obviously, if you are in that position where you are responsible, you should be investigating the situation, even if it's if it's just a kid, it's a harmless comment. I always feel like the truth prevails. So yeah, like if you dig a little deeper and you realize, okay, this is not a big deal, right? This was just a joke. Like the conversation you read it can't be taken out of context. It's just a joke. But I don't have any hard facts right now, but I've seen the news where like a school shooter has actually said they're going to do something beforehand, and it can be investigated to find that, okay, yeah, this is the case. Or if you even have a gut feeling that something could go wrong, there's I watched this documentary called Snowden. It was about the guy who, and then there's like this search engine. I forgot the name of it, but it basically like
search up each text.
Yeah, search up everything. The email, what you literally type a word, and it tells you exactly what that person has said in that context.
But do you think that's okay?
Morally,
is that an invasion of privacy?
Definitely. Morally, that is an invasion of privacy.
That's kind of like having your own policeman follow you around at all times, keeping track of everything you're doing, making sure you're not committing a crime.
This topic is so big because then it becomes, when is it okay for someone else to intervene? Like when is the safety of the general public greater than the importance of a person's privacy?
Yeah. I feel like it's important for there to be laws to protect data, but of course there has to be a way for the government to be able to keep track. But in that sense, I'm not saying that it's okay for them to be able to keep track of everything, where they shouldn't be able to see everything about your life and be able to tell exactly. Like, they shouldn't know where, what, when, why.
Because I know they say, like, cover up your cameras.
Now, I don't want to do that.
See, the thing with my laptop, I don't know if people are going to be able to see this, but I don't know if you can. Okay, so, like, my laptop doesn't have a camera on the top or anywhere else. It's like this. It's like it's actually in the thing. So, like, when you press it, it pops up. And, I mean, obviously, it's awkward when you're actually FaceTiming somebody, but that's the thing. Yeah, like it's like people see like your nose, but it's like I feel like that is something that we can do. Like that is something we can probably like make a better design for and put it so that obviously it's not shooting up your nose. But I
feel like there's always good ways to deal with these things, but it's just going to take a lot of time, and I don't think we have the time.
You have to be willing to put in the effort too, to like go the extra mile, right?
No, I don't. I think at the rate that we're going, and I think at the rate that we are affecting each other, and I think at the rate that we're raising an entire generation. Okay, every year there's a new generation that will step in with a new set of values. And it's happening
at a widespread agenda than it was before. There's a lot more going into society now than there was before.
Exactly.
There's a greater outreach essentially with the tools that we have. And so
you really need to be careful with what you were saying, doing, and you don't want to be making mistakes that are going to follow you around for the rest of your life.
Right. Because the thing that we talked about previously with kids having these accounts, being able to say what they want, there is going to come a time where it's not going to be like a hidden thing.
It's not hidden.
Yeah. It's not, but even now, like, it's not hidden, but people are kind of like, whatever, because it's not out in the open. It's not going to be a hidden thing that people are, like, employees are, like, looking at everything. It's not going to be a hidden thing. It's going to be well known that this is happening, and it's going to be happening publicly. And
I feel like at a certain point, we're going to leave behind a trail of data that is going to be easily accessible by every single person. Right now, there are third-party companies that are only able to access that data, but is it that hard? No. There's like IP address to IP address, and you can have exactly every single thing opened up in front of you. All messages, all comments, everything. Like anything that you put on the internet can be found.
They're working on an app right now that you can like scan a stranger's face and everything will show up.
Yeah, I'm not comfortable with that.
Yeah. Other than that, I watched a show about this where genetically we all have like our genetic blueprint, right? And so healthcare is going to advance to the point where your genetic blueprint can be examined before you're born, and it can be shown like if you have any diseases that are going to kill you at a certain
biology, right?
Yes, but we have it now where we can take out our chromosomes and kind of tell all of our chromosomes are in place and whatever. It's going to go way beyond that to the point where you're going to
alter it.
Yeah, but it's going to be so advanced to the point where this information is also going to be public. And so right now, in our time, there is no laws protecting us, our DNA information from being given to other people, especially healthcare companies. That's why they say don't use Ancestry whatever, don't use that stuff like that where it's gonna be like, let me tell you about your ancestors, because they can actually sell your information because there's no laws protecting us from that. And so if that remains the case, then what is gonna happen in the future is that these people, these employers are going to be able to see our genetic history and basically deny us jobs based on the fact that we have certain health issues.
Yeah, and I see. The thing is, I don't want to be alive in that day and age where I'll be denied a job because I might be sick.
There's no privacy.
Exactly, and I feel like it's very important for obviously this generation is focusing more on global warming and making sure that climate change is controlled.
Right.
And there's things that we also need to be paying a lot of attention to going forward.
Yeah.
Where if we make it past these next 10, 20 years, are we going to be safe being alive?
There's a lot of societal issues that people are not talking about. A lot of them that we are talking about in this, because as humanity advances, we are affected by everything.
Exactly.
And our not just individually, but as a whole, how are we progressing? What morals are we carrying with us into the future? And do those involve protection of privacy? Do those involve moral responsibility for people with platforms?
Oh, this reminded me of, I remember that, so I remember there was someone, in our last video, we didn't talk about the pornographic thing anymore, did we? We took all of that out, right?
Yes. Oh, yeah, a deep fake.
Yeah, so even in this day and age, there's people making fake accounts, fake pages where they put your faces on pornographic stuff content and just completely degrading you and completely shattering your character. And I feel like we should be able to control that to a certain sense. And I know that Facebook, Instagram has committees where they are supposed to be dedicated towards taking these pages down, but in reality they don't do anything, because it took me, I'd like to say, 70 tries of reporting the same account, and I don't know if I was the only one reporting it, for them to take it down. There was multiple people reporting the account multiple times, and then finally they decided to take it down. But then someone else, that same person, made another account under the same name, and it just went back up with all the same content. So obviously there has to be a way to regulate that and make sure that the same thing can't pop up.
Yeah.
Right? Because Instagram and Facebook are able to do that. We all know that Facebook can control everything and has basically all our shit.
Yeah.
So let's not even think 10 years ahead. Let's think of these problems that we're facing nowadays. And catfishing is also a serious problem, right?
Yeah.
You can't just be taking someone else's identity, or taking someone else's pictures is stealing their identity.
Yeah.
I don't care what you say, that is how it is. If you are pretending to be someone else, you are taking their identity, because there are some people who don't, I know that there are some accounts that do better being a fake account than the real account, right?
Yes, yeah.
So then the way that the fake person interacts becomes
your
an
identity. It becomes an image of who you are. And another thing is that stuff like deep fake and all of our Instagram pictures being, the thing with having a free country is that people are free to create whatever content they want and whatever apps they want. So there should be regulations, there should be a limit, right? If we have laws regulating other harmful things, I think eventually people are gonna, and this should be done fast, people have to come to a conclusion about how dangerous social media can be.
I want there to be something where if someone screenshots your picture or saves your picture, they have to send you a permission thing where you have to accept it, and then they can take your
Like
content.
Snapchat does a good job with that, where they're like, okay, they tell you somebody screen recorded your stuff, or they tell you somebody screenshotted your stuff. But they're still like I said, it's a free country. People are free to make whatever kind of apps they want, and so they're able to put out stuff that can look over that and not inform.
And that makes it harder for people to be able to do things like this. Like,
yeah.
Making this YouTube channel, the biggest problem that I faced was my friends and my parents kind of being like, you don't know what someone's going to do with those videos. You don't know what someone's going to do with your picture or your face that's going to go onto the internet, because it's not safe entirely.
I had my account on private for the longest time because it was like, there was this one point where I did make my account public, and somebody started taking my pictures and pictures of my close friends. We didn't know who it was. And they made like this kind of like Insta baddie page or whatever, right? And they just started putting our pictures up, and it's like, you don't have my permission to do that. First of all, I don't know who you are. And so like I was like commenting like, can you take our pictures down? Like, we don't want our pictures up here. And like they didn't. We had to like report that account. And it's like even small stuff like that. I know like Instagram famous girls or whatever, like this is a thing that people do, but you still ask for permission. Like, can I put your picture up on my page?
It's kind of like the same thing. Like if you're in person, would you ask that person before taking their picture?
Exactly.
If you don't, is it wrong? Yes, it's wrong.
It's wrong.
You don't just take a picture of someone.
And that's the thing. I feel like legally, sometimes a lot of things come off as they're not wrong. Like, I know you're allowed to document people in public places and like all of that. Like and I feel like legally, like, okay, legally it's okay. But again, that moral thing comes in. Like, is it okay for you to be doing this?
This reminded me of the whole paparazzi thing, where paparazzi was suing like celebrities for using the pictures that were taken of them. And it's just
you took that, like, do I not have right to my own self anymore?
Exactly. And I think we've strayed so far, and we don't really know what we're doing with technology anymore, and we kind of need to get back on track.
That's the thing with humans though, right? We create something, we don't understand the widespread impact it will have, or the long-term impact. We think in the short term. And once all of that long-term stuff happens, like all of the effects of social media finally play out, we're like, we weren't prepared for this, and we didn't have any limitations to control this, so now how do we deal with it?
And here's the truth. At the end of the day, the government isn't going to be impacted as much.
No.
People that are working for the government aren't going to be impacted as much.
It's normal.
As the civilians are, because your information is what is delicate.
You are at risk.
Yeah, exactly. And you are not necessarily aware of what you're signing away. So that's why now, whenever I am getting a new app or whenever I'm signing up for a new account, I try to read all the
terms and agreements.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's important for you to know what they're going to be taking from you, because when I made my Facebook, I didn't know.
No.
Do I regret it? Yes, I do.
Because Facebook, actually, even when we signed up for it, was a lot simpler than what it is now. Yeah. Now it is very complicated.
Now it's like so many things on
there. Now there's so many things on there, and I'm pretty sure Facebook owns Instagram as well. So
Facebook owns Instagram, WhatsApp.
Yeah. So it's like a big, I know like Facebook had a bunch of like breaches of confidentiality.
Where they forwarded all our information to the third party company, Cambridge Data Analytics or something. Yeah. And then they used it to help support the American elections.
Oh my God. And I don't know if anybody has noticed this, but you talk about something or you text somebody about like an item you liked, and then it shows up in your advertisement.
It happened with me the other day. You were talking, I don't know what you said to me. You said something to me, and I went on my Instagram and it showed up as an ad, and I'm like, oh, I'm
scared. Yeah, that's the thing for, like, they take our information for, it's something as simple as marketing.
Yeah. Our phones are always listening. Our Alexas are always listening.
Like, how do you think Siri works? Like, that thing is always on. Hey, Siri.
And it's listening.
Yes.
And it is hearing us.
Oh my God. It turned on Abdullah's phone as well.
But yeah, it's you can't have your phone around when having a conversation about certain things, and I've noticed that.
Yeah.
Like, if you're gonna talk about illegal stuff, please keep your phone away. And I remember there was a case in 2014 where
has it turned off? Okay.
There was a case in 2014 where I don't exactly know all the facts and I don't remember, but it was, I believe, the American government trying to pressure Apple into giving up the data on
yes.
an iPhone of someone that was situated in one of the Middle Eastern countries and was speculated to be a terrorist. And Apple was against that because they were like, we have to protect the information of that person, which is fair. I believe that Apple did the right thing. Yes, that person might have been a criminal and might have done a lot of harm to society, but at the end of the day, their data deserves to be protected as well.
That, and if Apple gives it away of one person, right?
Then there's what's to say you're not next.
Like their authenticity is damaged, their reputation is damaged. It's like if they're gonna do that to that person, who's not to say that they're gonna do the same to me?
And then when you set up your phone, it asks you, do you want to share this with Apple? Do you want to share this with Apple? Even when I set up my laptop, it was like, do you want to share analytics? Do you want to share your
That's
pages?
one thing I really like about Apple. Other than I was using, like I said, Android before, and I feel like it was the perfect thing to like begin with, like phones, because we use them every day. I really like the Apple gives you an option every time you open a new app. It will ask you for your location, but it will say allow only when using the app, because otherwise your location is on at all times and it's being used even if you're not using the apps that use it.
And it's always dangerous, especially when downloading apps that aren't as well renowned, because at that point then who is the developer? Who are you giving this information to?
I never actually thought of that.
Hey guys, so the quality might have changed a little just because we're going to be recording on my phone because I broke the SD card by accident.
Do you see what I have to deal with?
Yeah.
I just sit here and then she just fucks shit up.
Actually, I do everything. That's why I fuck shit up, okay?
Anyway, so I wanted to tell a story about how I was working at Value Village and we had a loyalty card you had to sign up for. But to do that, you have to give like an email and a phone number. And like to me, that was fine. Like I didn't think it was a big deal until like a customer said to me, he's like, do you know that you're allowed to sell our information to third-party companies? And that was like a huge, like kind of like a confliction to my own morals as well. So that was kind of interesting. I didn't know that before that.
So when I went shopping at Yorkdale with my mom, and I made a purchase at Gucci, and right after I went to Louis Vuitton. So while I was at Louis Vuitton, within 5 minutes, they were able to tell that I had made a purchase at Gucci, and I just made an account using my email and phone number, and they were able to track the fact that I made a purchase in their mall. And even the food court was able to see where I went to make purchases. So the entire mall has one system that they just follow for all transactions, and they can just see what purchases were being made.
Yeah.
Which is scary because it's just like all I provided was my first name, my last name, my email, and my phone number. And how can you do that with my information? Because at that point you have my credit card information as well. And credit card fraud is also a big thing. And I feel like that is a little more taken care of in respect to everything else. People don't really care that much about your privacy or like your data or your personal stuff as much as they do about your stuff that has to do with the banks.
Information,
because banks have their own rules because they don't want to be held accountable for anything, right?
Plus, another thing that happened was where I work now, it's really good because they have like the loyalty card that you don't have to give us any information for, which I really like that. But another thing that happened to me was I attended a conference about like cell phone use and like technology and etc., how to be more responsible with it. And the guy who was hosting the conference said that when he travels abroad to another country, he uses a flip phone because it's like when you put your phone and camera and whatever in the bin for technology and they scan it, they're taking all of your information. And whatever comes up that's harmful, they can stop you for it, and then you miss your flights or whatever, right? Like they can actually do that to you. And they can detain you, like they can actually detain you for investigations. And so he takes a flip phone with him so that the only thing that's on the flip phone is contacts. There's like minimal text messages, whatever, and he just puts that in the bin and that goes to get scanned. So he doesn't carry like a smartphone with him when he goes to another country, which is really smart because other than that too, like if you use Google Maps, it actually tracks everywhere you've been. It tracks the pictures you took at that place, who you were with if they also use Google Maps with you, and it creates like this blueprint of everywhere that you've traveled.
Yeah, and that's scary.
Yeah,
because who owns this information, and how easy is it for someone else for it to fall into the wrong hands?
Yeah,
because at the end of the day, of course, like sex trafficking and all of that, all these crimes have risen.
Yeah.
And we really need to think about what we have done to help it rise.
Yeah.
To what sense? Because I remember when kids used to talk to strangers on Facebook, it was brought to everyone's attention that, hey, make sure you know who your kids are friending, make sure you know who your kids are talking to. But now we're not taking the same thing because our parents don't necessarily know about the dangers of different applications that we are downloading, or they don't know the dangers of us having iPhones or us having just phones in general or laptops in general, and what it entails and how it is a complete breach of our privacy.
Yeah. Like when my parents were younger, they say that they were able to even go to like different people's houses, like their neighbors' houses, without like there being like this big thing about safety and everything, because it was more of like a tight-knit community. Everybody knew each other.
Yeah, okay. Do you have your thing in, you're talking about, do you have in 4K 60 frames? Your camera resolution?
So they, you know, it was more of a tight-knit thing. Like our safety wasn't that big of a concern. You could trust the people that were around you. But I feel like it's kind of paradoxical. The closer that we've gotten through technology, the more there is mistrust.
Exactly. Because you don't really know at the end of the day who you're friends with, where you know these people from. I know, like, we as teenagers like to be able to trust people immediately, and I made a lot of friends over the internet, and I hung out with a lot of them. Most of them were in Pakistan. So when I went back, I hung out with a few, and my mom wasn't really comfortable with it. Just because she was like, I don't know these kids, I don't know their upbringing, their parents, or anything about them, and I don't know if I'm comfortable sending you off to see someone when I don't know what the outcome of that might be. Which I understand, but obviously at that age, I don't feel that way, because at that age, I was 15, and I was like, no, I want to go hang out with my friends. I don't know why it's a problem. If I met this person in school, it wouldn't be the same thing as me meeting them online. But now that I'm older, I can kind of see the difference in meeting someone online and meeting someone at school, where you're brought up in a similar environment, whereas online, people just kind of come from anywhere and everywhere. And it's not safe because you don't know what anyone's household consists of.
Yeah. I think that is a good place to end off the podcast. Just to, you know, make it clear, obviously living in an era where technology is used almost every day.
We're not saying it's bad. We're saying that it can just be better to protect its consumers.
I think that with a powerful tool that it does the job that it's doing right now, there is a sense of accountability that comes with it that every person should feel and own up to. And obviously, without technology, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. We wouldn't be able to reach the amount of people that we do. And we're in no way saying that it is an entirely useless but tool. It is definitely a resource, and it is a powerful one when it is used in the right way.
Yeah, but you just need to know what you're getting yourself into before doing it.
Know your morals, know your values. What are you? How to keep yourself safe? You know, what is essentially your identity and how it can reflect online? Like, what is the persona you want to bring out in your online personality, and how you want to impact the people around you with it?
Yeah, and please, 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 please read the terms and conditions of everything.
Yes.
Before you say accept.
Yeah. Thank you for listening to episode 3 of 2 Girls, 1 Mic. And we'll see you guys around.
Yeah, and just so you know, our podcasts are available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and Anchor.
Yeah, and a bunch of other stuff.
Exactly. There's like a lot of them, but those are the main ones that we have on our link tree in our bios. And it's also in the link in the description below. And yeah, just make sure you support us on all platforms possible, and make sure to subscribe, like, and comment, and we'll be back with another video. So thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.
Have a great day. Bye.